This is the education verdict. Straight questions, real answers, no fluff. Co-powered by Hop Class and Mayoor School, Jaipur. Tonight, we look at a role that is quietly changing inside schools across India, the school leader. Once upon a time, the head of a school was primarily an academic anchor, someone who understood classrooms, curriculum, and children. Administration was part of the job, business was not. Today, the picture looks very different. School leaders are expected to manage admissions, branding, parent expectations, infrastructure, technology, compliance, staff retention, and financial sustainability, all at the same time. So here is the real question. Has the school leader become a CEO first and an educator later? And if that is true, is that progress? Or have we quietly shifted schools from learning institutions to managed enterprises? Tonight, we are not discussing theory. We are asking what leadership in schools really looks like today and what it should look like tomorrow. Joining me tonight are voices who live this role every day. School leaders navigating the balance between academics, administration, and expectations from every direction. Joining me tonight, Debasish Chakrabarty, founder principal, the Kulish School, Jaipur. Sanjay Khati, principal, Mayoor School, Ajmer. And Gaurav Bansal, Bansal Public School, Jaipur. Thank you all for being here. Let's get straight into it. In 1 minute, what is a school leader primarily today, an administrator, an educator, or a CEO? What's your position, Debasish sir?
When we are looking at the three words, CEO, I think the chief and the officer is more or less remains the same. But I think the idea of an executive has comprehensively changed over a period of time. So it is not just an administrator, it's not just an educator, not just an executive officer. I think the chief education officer now in any school or a principal in any school is a chief entrepreneurial officer. It's an edupreneurial officer. You have to know your education, you have to know your curriculum, but you also need to be abreast with all the other issues that are there. So I think that's where the principal stands, at the cusp of all the things. And without the fundamental position of being an educator, I don't think you are in a position to run the school. Then it's an enterprise.
Okay. Mr. Khati, what's your take on this?
Ravi, the schools, I'm sure most of you would agree with me, schools today are no less than a menagerie, And a person must wear several hats and, assume different responsibilities and different roles. To my utter chagrin, I'm an old school, and I believe that, good educators would make good school leaders, But unfortunately, there are things that you have mentioned, but there are things that are there, like, for example, finance, litigation, then setting up committees, all these kinds of things. All these things do take away the sheen from what the real job or the responsibility of a school head should be. So at the core, at the crux, the essence lies in an educator who has kind of, risen the role and now who is the school educator. So I'd rather believe that, I'll tilt towards academics more than other things, though I realize that for the success of the school, all the other things are also equally important.
Fairly put. Gaurav, what's your take
Absolutely, I agree with both of you. These three roles, when you talk about CEO or administrator or an educator, they are not in isolation. A leader has to be all three, but the real leader or the real wisdom is to know when to be an educator, when to act like a CEO, and when to be an administrator.
A timetable you're talking about.
Yes. So whenever you are taking a decision, it's not you wear a hat of being only an educator or a CEO. It depends on the scale also. So if you talk about a scale which is too big, maybe a chain of schools, then the CEO will stand for the generic terms like Chief Executive Officer. But if it's a small unit, one independent school, then the CEO and educator perhaps can be the same, the Chief Educating Officer.
How much of your time actually goes into teaching and learning versus operations and management, Debasish sir?
So, direct teaching, of course, becomes very difficult because, there's a huge responsibility that in today's day and age comes with teaching, which is understanding your curriculum inside out, knowing your pedagogy, planning for it, and planning is a very important part of it. So I don't think as a principal, most of us spend too much time inside the classroom. That's not a luxury we are allowed. But yes, that doesn't mean you're not invested in the academics and the curricular framework of it. whether it is class lesson observation, whether it is understanding the structure of the curriculum, the flow of the curriculum, the scope and sequence of the curriculum, how you are going to plan every activity. You can be invested in every part of it. And I think that's what at least I end up doing a lot. I spent close to around 50% of my time working just with the curriculum framework of the school. But of course, you have to manage your parents. I mean, they are a very valuable asset. At the same time, they are a stakeholder. You have to be in touch with the students. You have to engage with the students at a pastoral level. Because without a pastoral relationship, education is nothing in today's day and age. Well-being is absolutely critical, so are systems and management are critical. So you are looking at overall everything. You are looking at finance, you are looking at marketing, you're looking at all those things. But the administrative element, I think, takes, with multiple divided roles, it takes close to around 40 to 50% of the rest of the time.
Ravi, I think that the school is like a landmine. There's small explosions happening all around the place. So the principal, more than anything else, has to be a firefighter. To my dismay and my disappointment, extremely disheartening that I so desperately want to get down from my office and be with the children where I'm supposed to be. I'm paid for being there. But unfortunately, there are so many challenges day-to-day basis that you just can't. So I'd rather say that, academics, of course, I've not been able to kind of concentrate on academics at all. Administration all the way, I think I'd go on to almost about 90 to 95% that it takes up and guzzles my time. So very unfortunate. I realize it is, but then that's the way it is.
Yeah, so my time, again, more than, how much time I independently I'm giving to academics or the administrative part, it's how much weightage am I giving. So if academics is the core philosophy of any school, academics, the curriculum, the extracurricular, the co-curricular activities and your behavior and value system, it's how much, what core is it? So if that academics is at the core, then it's what percentage of academics am I, keeping at my decision making in taking any administrative decisions. So there are times when maybe during the admission time of the year where the entire focus is on the branding and marketing and the administrative side of it, the admissions. There are times when we are discussing with the teachers about how to set the curriculum, what has worked, what has not worked, what can be improved upon. It's like the 100% time is going in academics. But what percentage and what focus is what your decision making comes to a point.
Great. Are school leaders now more answerable to parents as customers than to students as learners?
See, I believe when it comes to parents as customers and the learners being the students or the consumer being the students, we are all a part of the same ecosystem. The parents and the school is the biggest stakeholder which has a maximum impact on any child. So more than answerability, I think it's about the parents and the school working together, keeping the child at the center, keeping the child at the focus.
Yeah, it's pretty disappointing, commodification of education and the fact that it's been reduced to a, kind of a diminutive service industry, I think. And this is something that we have been repeatedly asking and imploring and entreating the parents that please come on board with us. And I think in one of the previous panels, I think it was a discussion that was on, that the parents have to be important stakeholders of the school. I mean, on paper, in theory, of course they are, but in reality, I think absolutely detached. I think they just want to hand over the responsibility of raising the children to the school and then hold the school responsible for whatever the consequences are. I think it's a very sorry state of affairs in the schools.
I think we have to also understand where the parents and educators are coming from. We all belong to a generation which studied and learned very differently from what is expected of us to deliver right now. I mean, none of us were living in a digital era. None of us had gadgets at our disposal. We are looking at moving into a skill-based education, moving away from content-based education. That's a huge dynamic shift. I mean, no wonder all of us are floundering at some level or the other, and we are trying to figure things out. In this context, a parental anxiety is but natural. So to say that, we have to really take them forward. I think the modern school also has a responsibility to bring up the parent. Somewhere bring them abreast with what is happening, within the context of the school. So yes, I mean, just looking at parent as a customer would be perhaps doing them a disservice. I think parents are equitable partner and stakeholders in the system. They must have a say in education, but at the same time, they don't know better. And therefore, they cannot be dictating the terms of how the school should be run, what should be taught, how the examination should happen. For that, the experts should be allowed the space and the right to manage the things.
And so, moreover, we have to drill the point that it's a very technical thing. It's a specialized job that we are doing and delivering, So all we want is a kind of a support from them. So once that support structure is there and they have faith and trust in the organization, in the establishment, I think most of the things would happen organically. We aren't asking the parents to kind of jump into the deeper side of the pool. We aren't. But we just want the support, the kind of a model support that they know, that they trust the school, they have faith in the school, and they believe that whatever we are delivering to the children is to the best of our ability, and that's the best option that is available with the children, with education, with the educational landscape in that particular area.
So you're trying to say that when doctors are not asked how to, do a surgery on the operation table, on a similar fashion, educators shouldn't be questioned or possibly told how to teach their students. When enrollments or finances are under pressure, does academic decision making get compromised?
Not in my case, I think, but then we are financially very, very comfortable. But yes, I mean, if you ask me, if we ever come to a kind of a crunch where we have to, take a decision based on the finances of the organization, I'd rather prefer to take a strong call, which is right for the children, which is right for the school community, rather than, think about finances. So I'm very, very clear, and this is also, I think, that was discussed in one of the earlier panels, that the moral dilemma.
Perspectives could change had you been the owner of the school, not the school leader.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think that is where the vision and the mission and how it is being actually, where is the through line of that vision and mission from the board or the ownership into the school leadership and the school and also the parents as stakeholder. I think that line makes a very, very important, it's absolutely critical, because if the school is absolutely brutally honest and transparent about what their intentions are, and we have to name the elephant in the room. For example, I think without finances, you can't run a system. At this point of time, when we are trying to move away from the textbook, just buying the textbook is not good enough. You have to have education materials which are outside the textbook. You have to have technological inputs. You have to have other resources. All these cost money. So it is to say that finance don't impact education would be a lie which we won't be able to live up to. But to say that it directly impacts the intention of the education, I don't think so. I think the intentionality of the education is what the through line of your school belief systems are. How we manage resources needs to be guided from top down and needs to be managed well. But yes, when push comes to shove, I think quality and benchmarking is what holds through for the school.
I also feel in this, it's not necessary that finance always plays an inverse role to the academics. Not necessarily that if you have better financial resources, you will be able to better deliver the academics. It's not always the case. At times, if there is a crunch of financial resources, you end up being innovative and you end up being better in terms of delivering academics. One example I'd like to give, we were exploring some content which is to be made for the students. And the mistake that we ended up doing is we tried to reinvent the wheel. We gave additional tasks to all our teachers to create material, to create question bank, to find the best resources and prepare a study material which we can give to the students. And then the teachers, some of them lost their focus, and instead of being good teachers in the classroom, they started focusing more on the material. And then the cost of printing that material, and this is purely on the financial point of view I'm speaking, the cost of the material also came out to be really huge. When we felt that this in the long run will not be sustainable, we started figuring out what is the best possible material which is available. So if you realize that as schools, you are a platform keeping the children in focus, their well-being, their academic, their mental, their emotional well-being is in place, you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. If you are finding the best material which is available in the market, which is by dedicated research of those experts who have made the material, you can actually, save the time and the efforts and the resources of your teachers, ask them to deliver that content, discuss it in the class very well, and also take care of the finances.
Let me pause here and bring in what we are hearing from teachers and middle leaders across schools. Many teachers say they rarely see their school head in classrooms anymore. They see them in meetings, compliance reviews, marketing discussions, or parent interactions. Some say leadership has become more visible outside the school than inside it. At the same time, school heads say the system has changed. Regulations are tighter, expectations are higher, financial sustainability is a daily concern. So maybe this is not about individuals changing, maybe the role itself has changed. The question is, has the role expanded in a healthy way, or has it stretched so far that something important is getting lost? Has the role become so wide that it is unsustainable for one person to do well? Gaurav.
See, as I said, it depends on the scale. If you are running schools which are more in number across different cities, maybe in different geographies, then you would have to bear the role of a CEO, where administrative and the executive roles are more important. And in fact, more than that, it's the compliances also that really matters because of the increasing compliances. And not just the compliances, it's the correct interpretation of those compliances, which ultimately falls on the leader. But as I said, that as a leader, you should be involved in the academics, in the administration, and in the chief execution and the operations area so that you can take decisions in a good way. Standalone, if you expect a school leader to be very good only in academics, I think he'll lose sight of the other areas. So if you are having a board where you have people who with dedicated responsibilities, you hear them all out, you hear the perspectives, and then keeping in line that what aligns with the broader values, vision, and the mission of your school, you end up taking the correct decision. So I don't think from a leader's point of view, it is too much to handle, but you should be aware, you should be aware of all three different things and give proper delegation to the people and ask them to take care of their own areas and involve them effectively in the decision-making process. They should be aware of each other's perspectives.
Your take, Mr. Khati.
While the marrow of the school would always be an educator, I think the responsibility, the overall responsibility is that the head that roles would be that of a principal. But Sir was just mentioning about delegation. There's always a kind of a scare with delegation, that when you delegate too many responsibilities to different individuals, at times the information channels would sometimes get blocked, and it would rest autonomy on certain people where it should not rest. So sometimes it gets problematic for the principal. A good principal must know whatever is happening within his school. I think, all kinds of things, and academics being just one of it. I mean, the most pivotal function that we sometimes ignore, but litigation is another, financial functions, as you just mentioned, the HR functions also. I think so. We did mention, the corporate education. This is the new corporate education, that education looks today in the country. But extremely disappointing that, we must gravitate towards something that is more pivotal, important in the sense for the sustenance of the culture of the school, the essence and the ethos of the school. So that's very important.
I completely agree with what is being said, but I also think that in that role shift that we are looking at, the principal is also the chief designer of the program. And therefore, of course you have to have your fingers in all the pies, the communication channels have to be open, but that is where the principal's role specifically comes in as a communicator and a designer of systems. If your systems are in place, if your communication channels are open, if your through lines are open, then delegation is no longer an option, it's a responsibility. Your second rung of leadership has to be developed. Your mid-leadership has to be developed. And whose responsibility is that? That's also the principal's responsibility. So leadership management and responsibility management is all an aspect of the workload that the principal manages. And of course, it is too much for one person to run the entire school, whatever the scale of it. Even if I were to run a school of, say, 100 students, and if I have to deliver across all the sections and multiple curriculum, it is not going to be easy because the demands of the time are such, compliance is as such, legal requirements are such, well-being requirements are such. So with all these things coming together, yes, the role for one person is difficult, and that is where the management of delegation and communication comes in.
That is where the head of academics come in, the administrator comes in, then you have a principal, then you have a director, so you have multiple roles in the school.
So does it, Ravi, would a good babu or a clerk make a good principal? I mean, or do you still need to have an educator in that particular specific role? I mean, who's not been trained to kind of manage people or to manage finances or to manage legal, intricacies of it all. The other day, the others were discussing about effigy in the courtyard. I mean, you can't just concentrate on anything at all if there's an effigy that's burning in your courtyard every day, So shared responsibility, and that's when parents come in, that's when teachers kind of support, and all of our,
which brings me to a question which is very well connected to this one, that do students benefit from a leader who's operationally strong but less academically present? I remember when I was in school, my principal used to teach me English.
Absolutely.
And we used to look forward to that class.
I think it's just not possible. If a good leader, if a principal is not connected with the children, whatever, I mean, maybe on the playfield or inside the classroom or, on the stage, wherever, I think that kind of a connect this is what we are talking about, essentially. That a good educator has to be at the core of this entire experience called schooling. Important. And there's no, second take on this. So a good leader, while, he might just be expected to do assume different roles and deliver different responsibilities, I think at the crux of it all is that experience. And that experience would come only and only through connection. I hope you all agree with it. I think, it's only natural, it's only organic. And all of us who have risen the ranks, we all teachers, probably that's the reason why we think that way, the way we do. But I think, we have come to a time when, not hardcore teachers or trained teachers would probably be heading schools one day. But I think, when I was taken on board of the school that I am heading today, it was essentially because I am a good educator, and the board felt that probably I could make a difference in the lives of the children. If I don't have kind of connection with them, and I forget about making a difference to the lives, I can't even touch their lives, so that kind of thing.
Do you feel you're, besides being a good educator, you're also a good administrator?
That's something that I'm learning. It's coming the hard way, very difficult. Last 4 years, I've been struggling with it. But yes, another few years, maybe I'll just get used to it and it becomes second nature.
The school you're leading is not an easy one.
My sole the thing is that, again, I'm coming back to the principles, the first principles. The first principles are, you have a responsibility. If the child is truly at the center, then the vision and mission of the school needs to be interpreted into bite-sized curriculum pieces and be fed. And when I'm saying fed, it is not about textbook tests, it is not about a capsule, it is about experiencing education. Education is supposed to become a skill-based experience. That is what training for life all is, right? Now, if that is what we are going to do, then who is going to interpret the through line? What is going to be the model of interpretation? And that is where I think you need an educator. So having an educator outside the management locus makes it perhaps a bit difficult. But at the same time, your question was absolutely spot on. Does every educator, do educators are naturally gifted administrators? I don't think so. And that, I think, is a huge, huge issue. Many educators perhaps do not understand finance enough. And that is where I think the leadership training is an aspect which needs to be built into the modern school. Responsibility sharing, leadership training, you actually move step by step. The old boarding schools where we used to be trained, when you became a housemaster in a boarding school, you were given the responsibility of finances of the house, you were pastoral head of the house, you were handling the academics of the house, you were handling virtually everything as a mini school model. And that was your playing ground and that was your learning station. You learned it, right? So, see, any learning process is fraught with mistakes. Any learning process will have trepidations, will have uncertainties. What is a school first? It's a playground for learning where what is most important? Safety. Is it safe enough for our teachers to make mistakes? Is it safe enough for our administrators to make mistakes? And unless you allow them to make mistakes, how are they going to run those millions of schools which we are planning to open in the future? Leaders are not naturally born, they are groomed. So that, I think, is the process we need to start focusing on.
Thank you. Thank you for being honest. Before I go to the next question, Gaurav, a quick take on this question from you.
I don't think a direct visibility, of course, it has an impact. But again, the students who are impacted by the most is with their teachers. Because you have a section strength.
Do you teach in your school?
No, I don't take any subject, but I do take sessions on different areas: artificial intelligence, financial literacy, general motivation, ethics. These are the areas which I take sessions on. I don't take a direct subject teaching. But yeah, I feel that even if you have risen through the ranks of being a teacher and then primarily being an educator, a core at your heart, and then you are burdened with so many administrative responsibilities, how well as an educator you are able to inspire the teachers, because ultimately the majority of the time with the students, if you see the kindergarten student, they don't even know the name of the principal. All they're concerned about is the teacher or the ma'am who's coming to teach the child. So how well you're able to groom the teachers, I believe will have a greater impact as compared to your direct visibility, and also there are limitations to it.
So 2036, 10 years from now, what kind of school leader will schools need the most, Gaurav?
See, 10 years from now.
10 years from now.
So if we are already in 2026 and talking about AI and artificial intelligence, which is the next revolution after internet and impacting so much, I have a very contrasting view. I feel that 10 years from now, the educators who are going to sustain are the ones who try to avoid giving technology or who try to negate the impact of technology from the students' lives for as long as possible. Because in order to be intelligent enough, in order to command artificial intelligence, you have to develop the human intelligence. And then the evolutionary, development in the humans has not that been fast as compared to the technological advancement. So the educators who are very core to the fundamental human values of emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and ability to think. If you are able to free up your cognitive mind and let the AI do the clerical work, that's okay. But knowing that, this is the end product or the fundamental thought that I have, I'll free up my mind to let the clerical work be done by AI. It's something, similar to calculators. AI has come in this, in the last few years. Calculators have been around for so many years. But can you imagine giving calculator to a 3 or a 4-year-old kid? You will probably stop his, ability to do the math, to do the basic maths. Once you have understood it and, that is deep inside you, then of course, when you are taking the later, activities, you let the calculator or the Excel do the tedious calculations where you don't want your, conscious mind to be engaged in. So I believe a real educator would be who stays true to giving a correct human education and avoid the technology because it's going to impact. But I would like to, just delay it for as long as I can.
I strongly feel that whenever we talk of technology and AI, I have often referred to them as zombies in education. I think 10 years from now, even now, 10 years from now, we need evolved human beings who are just there. I've been a strong proponent of minimal invasive education because let our children be, let them be in a kind of a natural environment where they'll grow and they'll learn, they assimilate. There'll be a lot of osmosis, there'll be a lot of cross-pollination. And in fact, at the end of the day, it might just kind of surprise and shock us, but they don't need the teachers to the extent that we think they need the teachers. So I think, empathy, resilience, disruption, failure, and these are things that we've been talking about. Education, the bedrock of education is disruption. So we, as educators, as teachers, would probably like to kind of, sort of engineer a kind of a disruption in their lives and just quietly on the sidelines, on the margins, see as to how they are able to kind of operate within that particular system. So I think, human attributes and human qualities and human virtues and human qualities of leadership would kind of emerge. Even now it's needed, but I think another 10 years, I think all these we need to further bolster to have a robust education system in place.
Your view on this, Dev, sir?
I think most importantly, the future leader will have to be comfortable with contradictions. Because we're already seeing that, right? You have multiple poles which you will have to inhabit. And it is not necessary that every pole is an opposite of the other. So somebody who is happy with contradiction, somebody who is actually at home with inclusion mentally, you have to believe in inclusion at a very fundamental level. You have to believe in well-being. Because what is the responsibility? This obsession with technology and need for technology is not going to lessen. From calculators, if we have moved to AI, it is only going to be more enhanced. We might have embedded technologies next. But the point is, can we safeguard the child's childhood? Can we retain the space for growth and learning? Can we make the presence of the school memorable and fun? somewhere retaining back the joy of learning rather than making it a mechanical monster is, I think, preservation of the space is perhaps the leader's most important responsibility, and that is what the leader should become.
Ravi, can I just come in quickly here? I think the malaise of age is that the children are cosseted, I mean, the way we are bringing them up. And I think there's a terrible play deficit. If you understand a little bit of biology and see the evolution, we'll all realize that all the animals in the natural world, in the natural kingdom, would actually learn and assimilate a lot of things by play. By playing, with each other. I mean, all the social skills, the emotional, intelligence, all of it, would come from play. And this is something that's been horribly and terribly and tragically kind of compromised in the schools. I mean, some of schools would not even have a playground, So I think it is very essential, 10 years from now, even now, I would rather create play areas for the children rather than the classroom, So we have to move away from brick and mortar and get them closer to where the real challenge is. Because schools would actually be a microcosm of the real world. And we just have to recreate that kind of real world inside the school. I think 10 years hence, it'll become easier for us to kind of recreate that model in schools.
Totally in agreement with you. I need one-line answers from all of you on a great school leader must be
A deeply empathetic and a connected
Absolutely.
human being.
I agree. Yes, sir. I completely agree with you. Empathy is one trait that we don't see in schools, or a cutthroat competition that exists between schools. Within the school environment also, we don't see empathy. And of course, resilience. Resilience, how to maneuver away when challenges are staring back at our face. I think empathy and resilience.
Empathy is, of course, I agree. And I think adaptability as well. Adaptability and flexibility. You have to keep, innovating according to the changing times.
What should a school leader never lose sight of?
Safety and security.
The student, the needs of the child, the reality that the child is going to enter, and who the child is. I mean, if you don't understand who the child is, how are you going to create that person or give the person the right to become the person?
How is it possible in schools which has 5,000 students?
You have to enable teachers to give them that right. So, of course, the principal is not going to be there with 5,000 students, but do those 5,000 students have an identity, or have they been reduced to a roll number? That is something which the principal can ensure.
Yeah. So while at the center is the child, to have a kind of a love for the child is essential. But it's very difficult because children can be nasty, they're difficult, they are bothersome all the time. And therefore, I think, we need to have a kind of an agape love for them, a kind of a decisional love for them, a kind of a functional love and relationship with them where, we love them to that extent. But beyond that, we don't. And there's a kind of a derailment or detachment of the relationship that you have with the child, after a certain boundary. That's very, very important. While we realize, and we are not negating the fact that the child is at the center of this entire experience, but children can sometimes get very difficult and get on your nerves, and all of us know that. So while not losing sight of the main, motive of a good school, I think we must also at the same time, have clear boundaries where we have to stop and where the children have to take over.
Yeah. In one line, tell me one skill every future school leader must develop. What is that one skill? And we're talking about future school leaders.
The ability to constantly learn, relearn, unlearn.
Okay.
I'd say resilience and empathy again. I think it's very, very important. It's something gravely missing in our school landscapes today.
I think ability to, of course, in addition to what you said, ability to inspire. If the leader is someone that people believe in and really love what he's saying, because at the end of the day, learning is an emotional process. If somebody doesn't inspire me, no matter what right things he's saying, I'll not listen to you. If there's a politician I don't like, and even what he's saying is absolutely correct, I'll not listen to him. So if you are truly, genuine in what you say, and if you are inspiring enough, so the right things that you do will end up getting executed on the ground. So our leaders should have the ability to keep the team and the students inspired.
Well, tonight's discussion makes one thing clear. The role of a school leader has expanded dramatically. The pressures are real, the expectations are rising, but here is the education verdict. Schools are not corporations, and yet they cannot survive without professional management. The challenge is not choosing between educator, administrator, or CEO. The challenge is integration, leading with the mind of a manager, the discipline of an administrator, and the heart of an educator. Because the moment leadership becomes only about systems, we lose the soul of schooling. And the moment leadership ignores systems, schools collapses under their own weight. The future belongs to the leaders who can balance both without forgetting why schools exist in the first place. And now, we want to hear from you. What kind of school leader made the biggest difference in your life and why? Share your thoughts in the comments. We will feature selected audience voices in future episodes with full credit as part of this national conversation on education. Because leadership shapes schools and schools shape society. That was tonight's education verdict. Straight questions, real answers, no fluff. Co-powered by Hop Class and Mayoor School, Jaipur. Good night.